And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, as you all know, the design of our homes and neighborhoods can shape the way we live, connect, and feel about a place. To explore how Kuwait's architecture reflects our changing lifestyle and identity, we of course welcome architect Abdulaziz Alenezi. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Kuwait.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. Inshallah, it's going to be insightful for everyone who's watching.
Inshallah, you know, I think this interview is at an appropriate time because I'm furnishing my house right now. So this, you know, I've demanded, you know, please let me have the conversation with Abdulaziz so I can, you know, cheat a little bit of information from you. Now, of course, a lot of people may not know that the place we live in, you know, reflects how we feel, how we, you know, behave, and how we interact with each other. How much of that is true?
Look, there's a very famous saying. It says, we shape our buildings, and our buildings come back to reshape us. So the way we live is mainly shaped by how our buildings are designed. For example, we can be more connected or we can be more segregated. For example, if we are living in a home, if everyone is having his own master bedroom, all his needs inside the room, he's not going to go out to connect with his family, with his parents. Let's say, for example, if the staircase that takes you up, for example, if it doesn't pass by, let's say, the living room, you can go inside and out, no one is going to see you. So this is a very little example. And also, for example, we can be more connected through the courtyard. If we are living, all our spaces are opening to the courtyard, we can be connected all the time. This is from a social aspect. For example, from a cultural aspect, we can be also, let's say, proud of our identity, and we can be the opposite. For example, if we are designing our home to match our identity, to reflect our identity. But if we are just copying like the Western examples or the Western homes, it's a different story. So it can enrich our identity. It can keep us connected. It can also segregate us. This is like it can happen in a smaller scale and a bigger scale in our homes and in our cities.
It is, and mashallah, we were talking briefly before we got a cut, you know, before the start of the conversation about the old structure of our Kuwaiti homes, right? The shared courtyards, or, you know, in Amiya, al-Hosh al-Mushtarak. That was, you know, very distinctive, you know, Kuwaiti building structure. Now, why was that kind of structure, that look, those buildings, very important to the culture and the society at the time?
It's very important from different, let's say, from many aspects. For example, let's say it's environmental. It was a solution for the hot weather, the harsh weather. For example, the courtyard makes a microclimate inside the home, since there was no AC back in the days. So from an environmental point of view, it's a solution for the hot weather, because the hot weather goes up and the hot air goes up, the cold air goes down. So it's like a circulation for the air, especially if we are having a fan, or we are having water fountains, or we are having plantations. All of these elements will make the home colder. And they had bad gear. This was for like the air circulation. It brings in the cold air inside the interior spaces. This is from an environmental point of view. From like a social point of view, it's very important for the ladies especially, because the ladies didn't have their own space. So the courtyard was their main space. So they are connected to the nature, to the sky, to the weather, to the air, for everything. So especially for the girls, it was very important, the courtyards. Also from like, let's say, a healthy aspect. With courtyards, we can have natural light coming in, so it makes people more positive. So it had many. Also from an architectural point of view, it's when the spaces are surrounding the courtyard, it's easy to catch everyone else. Let's say if you are looking to your dad, you know he's in the courtyard. If you are looking for your mom, it's also the same. So it's also from an architectural point of view, it's easier to, or it's better, let's say, to make the spaces surrounding the courtyard.
It is, and mashallah, one theory that I read about why this kind of house is no longer, present now is because families, as they get bigger, they need a lot of more spaces. And the one negative thing about these old structures that the rooms were actually small to compensate for how big the courtyard was. But with a lot of large spaces now, you can still replicate that design. Which brings me to my next question, is that with the modern structure of our buildings now, what has changed? What has become so different about it?
I think our priorities changed a little bit. For example, in the past days, back in the days, we were focused on the, let's say, the house itself, to make it home, to make it like a place we go back to, like we are excited to go back after like a long day, whatever. Now we are only thinking about how it looks like. I think it's part of how our minds changed, the way we are living now, the lifestyle changed. So back in the days, we were looking for like the home to be very like warm, cozy, like a family home, Now people are mostly thinking about like how the facade looks like, how like if I'm inviting someone, what is he going to say? He's going to say like it's very mashallah luxurious, whatever, we were thinking about like how warm, how cozy it was. Now it's mostly how luxurious it is. And luxurious is it's a very like سطحي, so I think the meaning of home has changed.
It is, and like you said, unfortunately, a lot of people put more effort into how their house looked instead of how they feel inside the houses. For a lot of the younger audiences, they might not know that before, when we were kids, everybody knew everyone in the street, right? Your neighbors, you knew them by first name. Like your mom would tell you, go to Beit Huseinan, go to Beit Ali. Everyone knows it, but now we lost that connection. We lost that feeling of neighborhood. Has the way our buildings shaped, contributed to that?
See, I'm going to share a funny example with my little brother. Back in the days when Corona hit, he never knew any one of our neighbors. But since there was a full lockdown, so our kids used to take their bicycles and play in the streets since it's safe and there are no cars. Every day he's coming, he's saying, I'm going to meet with my friend, our neighbor, I don't remember his name, at this time. So he made friends with our neighbors because he's going to the streets. He's going to the let's say like the little public spaces we have in the neighborhood. So yes, definitely it changed the way we are living, and it made us like everyone's living in his own island. Now the only time you see your neighbor when you are going to the car and when you are leaving the car, you are going back home, because there are no public spaces. We have supermarkets, جمعية, whatever, but still it's not like exciting to go out,
Yes.
And if you see examples like from other countries, like for example, people here will say it's very hot to go out, but let's say for example in Riyadh they are working with this style, like to make it more urban, more walkable, more like shaded, the streets. So it's the same environment, the same weather,
Yes.
So we are missing this thing,
It is, and also I think our elders, I wouldn't say the generation before us, but the before them, like my grandfather, right? They used to have these gadat. I don't know what to say in Arabic, but they were outside. Outside, in the parking, and the elders and everybody in the neighborhood, the fathers, the grandfathers of the neighborhood would come here and sit down. So they would keep that connectivity. But now we don't have that, we don't have that shared connectivity with a lot of those.
This is also funny again, because they used to act like the policemen of the neighborhood, because they know everyone who's living in this neighborhood, So because they are sitting out, they are socializing. So it was safer than the neighborhoods back in the days. It was even safer.
It is, and mashallah, like you say, we're losing a lot of that. And subhanallah, it's only because the structures changed, right? They're not as open to each other as before. And speaking about the structures, now whenever you're hearing someone who's building, getting furniture, getting decor, they all say, I'm looking to make it Japanese style, Scandinavian style, Western style, American kitchens. They're being inspired by all of these different cultures, but they're still losing something from our own culture. So at what point does this not become inspiration, but just becomes copying something else that's not ours?
This is a very sensitive question because what I think is the facades should follow the identity we are having, like the Kuwaiti identity, the Arabic identity, the Islamic identity, because the facade is for everyone, because it's a part of the street, part of the neighborhood. So the owner will not like stay in front of his home and just look at the facade. So the right goes back to the neighbors, because they are part of the neighborhood. But for the interior, I always like to give the right to the client to do whatever he wants, because it's his space inside, because he's going to live inside, not us. But the facade is part of the identity we are trying to make. But it's very true, because now everyone is like following a specific style. Let's say, like, for example, we like ultra modern. So it's like it's very dull, very like no colorful, not colorful. No colors. I think it's part of how we are training our eyes. For example, every time we are checking Instagram, there's like a trend. Oh, we would like to have it, Yeah. So I think to solve this problem, we have to make a trend for it, in order for it to succeed. I think we have a long way to go.
It is. And mashallah, I'm glad you brought the idea of these trends, because one of my friends was doing his apartment, and then he said, I'm going with something called minimalistic style. And then I looked at his apartment, I was like, Khalian. And he's like, no, that's the style. So we are losing a lot of things. But one thing we can not lose is our shared heat. All people in Kuwait share the same amount of heat, same amount of temperature, the sun. And are there any structural lessons we can take from the traditional buildings and apply them to the modern ones?
Definitely. The courtyard is a solution, like I mentioned earlier. It's a very good solution for the hot weather. People now, they are not making courtyards because they think because it's hot, we don't make courtyards. It's the opposite, the other way around. Because it's hot, we should make courtyards, because it's a solution for the hot weather. Also, like we need to pay attention for the windows orientation. For example, if it's like a southern or western facade, we need to make our windows smaller, because it's very hot during the day. Especially the south, because all day long it's going to be sunny. And there are solutions, treatments. For example, there's like mishrabiyya, sun breakers, whatever. And there are many solutions to solve these issues. Like also the materials. Back in the days, they used to use local materials like clay, bricks, whatever, limestone from the sea. So it was a solution for the hot weather, because it's a very good material. It's very good in isolation. And when the heat hits, it doesn't go inside. Also, the wall thickness was very huge, maybe 30 centi or more, 40 centi. So the heat didn't go inside. This is in winter, in summer. Also in winter, the house or the home keeps the heat inside. So it's also warmer in the winter.
It is, and mashallah, like you said, الحاجة من الاختراع, right? Because we are feeling all of this heat, the solutions are there. Because our house, the current house we live in, it's maybe 30 years or more. And whenever there's a little bit of sun, it feels like the entire house is a volcano. But our other family members who built new homes, honestly, mashallah, the amount of heat deterrence that they have is absolutely amazing. Now, when Kuwait, we are still developing our structure. We are still, finding our style, taking it from the traditional to the modern, to the futuristic, to look forward. Now, decades from now, what kind of stories we want our house, our neighborhoods to keep telling?
Again, this is also a sensitive question. You know why? Because now we are very proud of our ancestors, what they did with their homes, their urban planning, their city planning. We are very, very proud. Now when we look at their examples, يعني you are amazed يعني how they solve the issues, especially with the little resources they had back in the days. Now, inshallah, we have many resources. Now we are a rich country, so it should be now we should be يعني we should يعني our culture or our architecture should be even more rich than what it used to be because we have more resources now. But the problem is maybe the globalization. The problem because now there's there's no specific identity in many places or in many countries. Very little countries who have like a specific identity. For example, Oman. I think in the future maybe they will say we were lost for a certain time. Our identity was lost. We didn't know like what style we are following, what architecture we want, what are our demands, let's say, our needs in our homes. But I think now, especially when like the younger generation is coming, like studying abroad and coming back with their experience, I think it's getting better. يعني now the homes are getting better. And now, mashallah, when you see a home, you know it's in Kuwait.
Yes.
يعني Kuwaiti architects are good, alhamdulillah. يعني maybe better than many countries surrounding us, you know. So, and for this reason, other countries are dealing with Kuwaiti architects because they are creative, they have a good taste, you know. So I think in the future, inshallah, they will praise our architecture. I'm hoping, and I'm not sure, but I'm hoping because يعني it's still we are looking for ourselves, let's say. And now we are trying to solve many problems.
It is, and I think you got it right, you know, because now we're seeing the generations of people who got into, you know, I'm talking about Kuwaitis who got into architecture, you know, studied all of those, you know, and now they are their own businesses, they are their own employees, they are their own firms. So now we're seeing movements toward bringing the traditional structures here. You know, you see them in how they design the douaniyas, how they design, you know, saradib, how they design everything. They're trying to implement that, you know, feeling of shared spaces while keeping, you know, the modern style. With that being said, Abdulaziz Alenezi, I do want to thank you for being our guest here tonight, today, of course, on KTV2 for Good Morning Kuwait. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much again, and inshallah it's going to be insightful again for everyone.
Thank you. It has been insightful, especially for me. I hope it has been insightful for you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a very quick break, but stay tuned for after the break.